Okay. Notes taken. And so I'm Loomis Brinks. And you already know together we make the Southern Flow. Today we are here with a creator, and not just any creator. This is a guy of many hats. A cinematographist, a videographer, a photographer. He's just a beast with the camera. I'm inspired by the work that Josh does, and I just gave you his name. But we are here with Mr. Josh Bane, guys. Give him a round of applause. Josh, man, we appreciate you for being here with us, bro. We appreciate you, man.
I appreciate it.
Yes. Josh, so we've really been building, man, and I, we had spoke before, and I told you one thing that had grabbed me was to hear your story, and you talked about suicide, and one thing that me and Trey are big about, we're advocates for mental health, we're advocates for men in mental health, and it was just like, again, it was an inspiring story to see you. You're saying you're coming from this one space of thinking about suicide to now being in a space where, like, bro, you're flourishing, like, and I say that from the space of just like really admiring your work, seeing your work. There's never a dull moment. I always see evergreen creative creating, yes, and we'll get into Bane Tech and all the other assets. But if you could just just start with sharing your journey in terms of like where it stemmed from as far as your mindset in suicide, and then coming into this point of your life.
Yeah, so just some context to all that is back in high school, my senior year was a rough time in my life and was not in a good space mentally. Just a dark time. I could I have a lot more details on the video that you're referring to, and if you go to andimherestillproject.com, my story is laid out there. So just a little heads up though, there's some details in there. So if you're sensitive to that kind of stuff, just be aware of that. But basically, the context with all that is just, like I said, just dark time. I let that get to me, progressively, and I was the master of hiding it. So I was the type where, I would get into the depression by myself in my bedroom, and then once I went out the door, no one really knew what was going on, not even my closest friends, because I kept it that well hidden. There was, people could tell there's some stuff going on. Like if you were to like kind of look back now and then look back at the time, it's like, that probably made sense of why he was acting this way or that way. But it was just one of those things where I got to the point back at that time period where, when I was going through, long story short, I was in a facility for about 3 days, 3 nights, a behavioral health facility. You get, I'm trying to remember, I think it's geriatric is what it's called, where they're going to take you in if you're going to be harm to yourself or someone else. So you can willingly go, or you can just, be cooperative. And, I chose to be cooperative, and I had to spend some time there. But I got into a mindset while I was there that I don't belong here, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out of this space because this was not for me. But ironically, some of the advice I was given during that time period was like, you don't have to share. You can keep this to yourself. There's people, a select handful of people that know about it, but you don't have to tell anybody else. So, true, you can keep private things private, but at the same time, one of the biggest things or one of the biggest problems was I kept things to myself. So, I struggled even for months after that, just with like knowing it was like kind of hard to look at other people knowing what happened and then they didn't know, but I wanted to say something. Like I wanted to let people know about what's going on. And so a few months later that summer, I ended up sharing my story with the youth group that I was going at the time. There was a girl that was, she opened up about a friend that opened up to her, talking about she wanted to, hurt herself and stuff like that. So she didn't know what to do for her friend. So she was like in a really hard spot. And so that kind of just prompted me, and my youth pastor knew about the experience that I had. So I was like, it's time. Like, I got to say something. And that's when I opened up that night. And that's when I really felt, freedom, and that burden just kind of lifted off of me that I was going through. So, like, going through that experience and all that kind of stuff, I became passionate about mental health and suicide prevention and just efforts like that, just naturally, just because obviously my experience and stuff. Ended up later on, years down the road, I graduated from Liberty Online with a psychology counseling degree. And so it was one of those mindsets too, is like if I'd used it for a career path or if I was just more prepared for helping that one person, that's what it was about. That was my motivation for even just getting that degree. So I used it for a little bit of time. At SpectraCare, I was a prevention specialist and also social media coordinator for them for a few years. So I got to work with the best of both worlds. Like I got to create content, and then I also got to help out with suicide prevention, came up with campaigns that was around that kind of that space there. So that kind of, it almost segues into like some of the Bane tech stuff, but which was pretty interesting because I wouldn't have had that job if I didn't have my tech YouTube channel along with my college degree. So it was like a very, very rare combination just to even have that.
Like they met each other. They meshed very well.
So yeah, that's kind of like the context with the mental health kind of stuff with my background. The project that you're referring to though, is called "And I'm Still Here." And that's kind of like a statement that I've held on to for quite a few years. Even to this point at times, like I see people that are taken by cancer or other illnesses or, just sudden instances. And I'm like, they were such a better person than I am. Why am I still here? So like I deal with those kind of questions in those kind of regards. So for about 3 years now, I've had this idea to have a coffee table photo book where, one side is a person's portrait and then the other side is their story. And I'm kind of going after people that have had second chances or like near-death experiences and struggle with that. It's like, why am I still here? But when you kind of go through, stepping back and maybe finding your purpose, or whether that purpose is just a daily thing or if it's, you have a mission in life, anywhere in between, you can kind of, no matter what's going on, and I'm still here. It's kind of like the feeling and vibe with that. So I've taken some steps to get that going. I had some motivation to just get out there and do it, because it's one of those things like sometimes personal projects get put on the back burner when you're taking care of everybody else's stuff. So that's just one of those things where take some steps and see where it goes. And
So this movement, say that again.
And I'm still here.
And I'm still here. Is that like under like nonprofit work, or is that?
So right now I'm treating it as just a personal creative project. I don't know if I'll take it to the nonprofit side of stuff, because I kind of want to profit from it, so that way I can maybe better, without a lot of red tape. For sure. So that's kind of like, that's where I'm at right now. I'll talk to some mentors and stuff like that and see if it'd be a better way to go that way. But for now, it's just the creative expression. And some of the motivation behind it too is to provide a platform for others to be able to share their story. Okay. So, and that's where I get a lot of motivation for anything I do creatively. It's like, not everybody has the means, knows how, sometimes people are just waiting for that invitation to share. And so, like, if I could provide that platform for someone to come in and do it, and I can help them and walk them through, processing how to share the story, that's kind of like where I'm at with this project as well.
Okay, I like that. Because if you could get, if you do take it to a non-profit space, it's almost like it becomes a bigger platform, and it's not as like personable, and the space isn't as private, because now I got to put it out. Okay, I got you.
Government gets involved.
Yeah,
it's like,
you're infiltrating, bro. Yeah.
I'm not throwing shade at all, but from my experience of working with a nonprofit or working for one,
for sure,
and then also just seeing some of the things that nonprofits have to go through, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do all that. Not because I'm afraid of accountability. It's just I want a little bit more control over it, I guess you could say.
For sure.
But I kind of want to leave it as a creative expression and allowing others to be able to express too. Obviously there's costs and stuff involved, but if someone's passionate about it, they'll make a way.
That's cool. So, like, where does first of all, that is very cool for you to, come from this space of like dealing with thoughts and like mental overload to like understanding how the mind works and like learning how to we're always learning how to work this thing, but kind of get a better understanding of it, you know. That's very cool. And then also you said the background in like not content work, but what was that in terms of like working social media?
Right. So social media coordinator was the position.
Okay. So where does the camera work come in?
So that's where Bane Tech comes in. Okay. So when I was going back to school, I was taking care of my daughter, which was she was about a year or so old at the time. And so I was full-time student, full-time dad. And when she was taking a nap, I was making videos. So that's how that got started. Because that's when it was quiet in the house. That's where I didn't have to have any kind of commotion going on. And that's how I got it done. But when I started Bane Tech, it was one of those, like, I'm the kind of customer or consumer that looks up reviews before I buy something. Mm-hmm. And so I was getting really interested in the tech space and the mobile tech space, like smartphones and stuff like that. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not finding the information that I want to know. So I think I could point a camera this direction and talk to at it, learn how to edit the stuff, and then put it out there.
So this was all, as far as like working with the camera, that was self-learned?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so I started completely self-taught. YouTube was where I focused on, but also like that's where I developed some connections with like learning how to do some stuff. But YouTube University.
Man, you can't beat it. And that's a testimony, right, to like anything is possible. It's just a matter of putting in the work, the effort, the intention, having the tenacity. When you talk about like, Bane Tech, like what year was that when you started Bane Tech?
That was about 2012.
2012. So this was like a look, because the iPhone came out, 2000, was it 2008?
So, but if you think about our region and area, back then it was Verizon versus AT&T.
Yes.
And so the iPhone was linked up to AT&T.
AT&T.
So I started out on the Android side of stuff mostly.
With the Droid.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have the first slide up?
Oh yeah, that phone actually, I would say, changed my life in a sense, because that's where a lot of my content started to get kind of tied into. I learned how to do all the custom ROMs, how to do all the hacking kind of stuff. Not hacking, but just manipulating the software to be what you want it to be. So that's where I kind of got my start with that. It was funny, like we had, I think, like the BlackBerry Storm 2, and when that came out, a buddy of mine was like, return that and get the Droid that's coming out next week. And I was like, he knows more than I do, so I'll try it out.
And I think the next one was the first, was it the Razor? It was the Slim Droid that came out after the push-up Droid, if I'm not mistaken. I think, but I just, because
the Razor stuff is before like the smartphone kind of stuff started coming out. There was like BlackBerry that was
Right.
still pretty strong at that point.
Right.
But again, I have to like go back to just this region. It was like the droid is the first droid that came
That
out.
we saw, yeah.
You know, droid does.
Yeah.
You know, that whole
little
campaign.
movement. Yeah. I mean, it really changed the landscape of things, because like my first almost like smartphone was like the LG Touch. And then from the LG Touch, I went
Because
to,
I think my first iPhone was like an iPhone 4 or 4S.
yeah. Mine was
think I
too.
had
It was the
that
4S.
Yeah. Because I think that was the first one that was available on Verizon.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what I had at the time. So when that happened, like I was both iPhone and Droid at the same time, but Android still had, I mean, I still have an Android phone of some sort. Worked with Google Pixel for years with the content side of stuff, and still make content on when I can with the Bane Tech stuff too.
Yeah. Trey, did you?
I just want to know what advice you would give to somebody that's thinking about, jumping to videography or photography. I know I've checked out, the Evergreen creative company. It's nice in there, man. It's amazing. But I know it didn't happen overnight, so I just want to know what advice you would give to somebody that's starting from scratch.
Starting from scratch, I would take courses to learn the basics to get that stuff kind of out of the way. Learning to know why a camera does a certain thing, and all this stuff that even we're using here right now they're all tools and they all do certain things. And so when you can learn how those tools and how you manipulate what those do, that's where you can really start dialing in your style, the kind of stuff you want to capture. I would say go out and capture as much kind of stuff as you can, get as much experience as possible, link up with other photographers or videographers and second shoot for them, learn what they're doing, just get as much experience as possible.
How long has your company been open?
I started on my own. It wasn't Evergreen at the time, but it was 2017 was the kind of the time where we started to basically where I put my 2 weeks in at Spetchicare and took the dive. Yeah.
I know so many people, coming from a small area, a lot of times we want instant gratification, especially when we see people like you. We look at you and say, oh, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Or
it's the truth, though. It's like I learned on my own. Like, there was no formal training. I didn't come from a background of photographers. My family has a kind of like a legacy of being creative and artists and stuff, but my dad was an entrepreneur, a businessman. So like there's some of that tied into who I am. But like even to this day, I still like, if there's a creative shot I want to get, I'm learning how I'm going to try to get that shot. So it's, practicing and again, like learning how to manipulate that kind of stuff. And the only way to do it is just to go out there and try. Yeah. When I got into the professional stuff is on the wedding side of stuff more. And at that point in time, that's where we started seeing the highlight videos that we see now. That wasn't very popular 10 years ago even. So 2015 and before, not really anybody was making wedding highlight videos. It was just typically your uncle with a camera and a tripod caption the whole thing. Like that's what wedding video was, not these 5-minute films that you see now that are like creative productions at this point. But like with that mentality though, going back to YouTube, there was a creator, Craig Adams. He had a channel called Wedding Film School. He's not in charge of it anymore, but at that time, like he was posting videos about like how to mic people up, how to mic a groom up, brides up, how to use a gimbal for a certain kind of this or that, like why he uses a gimbal and then why he uses a tripod. And, it's like you start, and he did a very good job of doing that, but like you learn from others in that way. And then, I would say, some of the ways I was able to make good steps was because, again, at that time, no one was really making that kind of stuff. And there's very, very few people that were making wedding highlight videos in this area. and there's been people in the industry for a while, but I kind of came in. If you look up Craig Adams or Wedding Film School, go back to that point in time and see the kind of stuff that he was putting out. And I have that mindset too. I'm like, if I see something, I'm like, I can do that. Like I feel like I could do that. I've got to figure out how to do it, but I know I can do it. That's not out of like my capabilities kind of stuff. And so that's kind of when I got going. I liked his style. I liked what he was doing. I liked how his story told. I like how he incorporated like audio and stuff like that. And so like that's how I started with wedding films. And for the most part, and again, not throwing shade at all, but just style, a lot of wedding videos at the time was just a montage of clips with music under it. It's fine. It worked for some people. Some people like that. That's cool, but that wasn't the style that I wanted to incorporate. So kind of being an outlier worked to my advantage. And especially being in an area like Dothan, it's not hard to stick out.
Yeah, just like plain Jane. But that was great what you were saying about like the mentor that you were getting like insight from, and a lot of times we overlook those things. It's like, oh, it's technique behind miking somebody up, or using the right type of gimbal or catching the right type of angle. What do you think about like the downtown life, like even in terms of like what is Dothan becoming? When you think about things like Mardi Gras, because you guys are almost, I ain't gonna say almost, you guys are like in the forefront of that, and like
we could. Mardi Gras is interesting. We'll have to do some off camera.
But like, what do you think about like the transition, like the things that are happening downtown? Do you think this era of this Renaissance era is what I call it? Do you think this is something that's gonna really contribute to like the creators and like the videographers and the people?
So first of all, I love downtown. Like I'm a city type guy. I grew up in Gainesville, Florida for, middle school, high school. And I was used to that, bigger kind of stuff. I mean, I like the countryside for what it is, but, I just like the downtown life. I like city life. And so like what's going on now, it's always been something I've looked forward to, or hoped that would happen. So, like Foster Fest was where I got into the corporate side of stuff. That's where I got my feet wet, rubbing shoulders with corporate people, and I had a photographer friend that was introducing me to business people and this and that, and like so that's how I got to reach across and be able to start working with some of those corporate accounts. But Foster Fest was one of those like I could almost do what I wanted. And that was a good experimenting ground. I could figure out what kind of creative stuff I wanted to do with that and try to give Dothan something that wasn't normal. And so that's what I went after with Foster Fest. And so literally where my studio is right now, like I would walk up and down that spot how many times, and I always had the thought as like, someday, I'm going to have the studio downtown. Like, and so it's been a goal of mine. And so downtown does mean a lot to me. It's like full circle in a sense. It's where I got, a lot of my beginning kind of stages was from the downtown work. And so like I put a lot of work in with that, just making connections with city, PR and press kind of stuff, media relations there, being able to work on projects like that. We've been documenting the progress of downtown. So one of the bigger, I guess, mile markers with what we'll be able to start releasing is work on like the progress of the Opera House. So once that's complete, once the phase 1 is complete, like we'll have, from the planning stages all the way to the complete stuff. So being able to document and literally be in the weeds, being able to see some of the work get done has been pretty cool to be part of. So I'm all for what's going on. I think it's very much needed. I'd love to see some of the squatter owners on properties get out, so that way progress can happen. I don't get the point of holding onto a property and just letting it rot. So I would love to see some of those buildings have someone come in and actually do something with it. So yeah, like downtown, Keep it
Yeah,
going.
those are my exact thoughts, just in terms of, like you said, the squatter,
Yeah.
the squatters.
Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, like what is it? Just the pride in saying that I have ownership? I don't know, maybe, but or even come in and allow someone to renovate and rent. You know,
It's like it's missed out revenue. It's like, rather than it just sitting there, like, let someone else come in and even just rent it
Yes.
for you and have them pay rent.
that exactly, because the willingness is there. Like I see a lot of people like trying to figure out how they can mesh with
And
what's
it's like, with the landscape that we have in the downtown area, there's not much to pick from, unless it's going to be new development somehow, which we're actually seeing the city doing. So, I mean, I think, was it this week they're talking about tearing down the Dothan Eagle building?
Yes, I just saw that in the news article.
Redoing that, so it's progress. But to also answer your question about the creative space and how downtown plays into that, one, it brings in more opportunities for just activities going on. So if you're into event coverage, there could be potential, thoughts with that. When you have outside talent coming in, that means they're going to be looking for creatives to help out with their projects too. So that's, if you got your ear to the ground, if you're connected with the right people, there could be opportunities if you want to work with artists, musicians. Sometimes they don't have their own creative team with them, or if there's other kind of talent that's doing stuff, they're going to be looking for creators that are in the area to help them get projects done on a local basis. So the more outside talent that comes in, the more our local talent will have opportunity to work with that talent. So it's not just about what's here in Dothan, it's about what we can bring in too.
Do they allow hip hop into the plant?
I want to say there was some sort of hip hop a week or two before that.
So
Don't quote me on that, but I want to say Dave Geiler, that is part owner of Premier Entertainment Group. I want to say he said something like that. He was like, hip hop was last week, rock is this week, and then country coming up in like 2 weeks or something like that at the plant.
Yeah, because that's just something like
The plant, to me, like, Civic Center is great, Opera House is great, but I love the plant.
No,
like I feel it's like it's more intimate environment to where you're able to be closer to the action a bit more. You're a bit more congested with the people that are all there for the same reason. So I like the plant.
it gives you a real concert, the real concert experience. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of festivities take place also at the fairgrounds, but we've always just envisioned literally the plant being a space where not just, a lot of people say it's all the same, but I do feel like there's a difference between hip hop and just rap, and like to really orchestrate like a real hip hop concert where it's really rocking and the content is really something that pushes the culture forward versus just.
Yeah, I'm not sure who tries to get bookings there and stuff. I know that Clay has his hand on some of that. 423 Productions comes in a lot and gets some acts and stuff. But if there's someone connected to that genre of music that could bring him in, show the numbers and all that kind of stuff, I don't see why they wouldn't try to book something there.
That's a key. Show the numbers.
I mean, one of the things that I picked up on too is like right now, or this past weekend, there's a festival Rockville down at Daytona. And then there was another festival up in Ohio. I can't remember the exact name, but what the strategy was is to catch those bands as they're moving to those festivals to be like little pickup spots. So Dothan became one of those to where they could bring them in. It's a smaller show than what Rockville is, but they book them in and get them in that way. So learning how to do that process. I don't know the process, but whoever's in that world that's who you need to talk to.
Yeah, that's great insight. Trey, what did you?
Yeah, my question just was, we're the Southern Flow podcast. Our logo is a record disc, and our underlining values is just music, just all genres of music. I was just curious to know if you could shoot, videography, photo shoot, your favorite artist. Like, what would you envision? Like, who would it be? Like it could be an album cover. It could be a music video. What would you shoot? Who would you shoot?
I would go more towards the documentary style.
Okay.
Because I feel like you could get some very valuable time with an artist or band, because not only you're like a music video, yeah, you're getting their, what they're performing, but with a documentary, you could get a little bit of the why. Being able to sit across from someone that you look up to in a sense, or like you've listened to your whole life, that would just be cool in itself. On top of, if you're doing a documentary, you're going to be at some concerts too, get to see some of the behind the scenes stuff. So I think, getting all that. I'm into hard rock and metal. So like those are the bands that I pay more attention to. So there's a band member, Brian Welsh, Head from Korn. So he has a very interesting story. I followed his story for a while. A lot of mental health kind of stuff too. He's become a Christian through his journey. And so he's developed just this really kind of way different perspective from anyone else that you can talk to that has been in the depths of depression, drugs, all that kind of stuff, and came out of that. And now he's got a message that, he's helping other people out of those kind of situations too. So getting some more of that, like that kind of conversation would show a lot of value with that. But then throwing down at one of their concerts would be pretty epic. So I've seen him in concert a couple of times, but I can imagine being like on a behind the scenes level with that. Mm-hmm. That'd be insane. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, in terms of manifestation, it seems like you're very strong in that. So who's to say that won't take place, Because I think we see documentaries, but I think we're also seeing like different styles in capturing, said content. Basically what you were just saying. So, you never know, like, person gets word and it's like, hey, we got the best shooter,
But that's the way it is. It's like, it's crazy some of the times, the places that Bane Tech has taken me, that Evergreen has given me chances to do stuff. It's like, why? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, this is crazy. Like, this is, for example, like this is something that's being worked on in the process. I don't know where it's going to go, but I was on a video conference call with a client that I've worked with before. It's actually has to do with mental health. He's developed it's called Clinicom, so you can look it up, but it's on the doctor level and patient level kind of stuff, trying to bridge gaps between all the complications that go on between just trying to get an appointment to sitting down with someone, all the frustrations in between they're trying to eliminate. Excuse me. And so, very cool program. Got to work on what I would consider an impactful video for them. But now we're working on potentially doing something else. And he opens up the question, I think last week, is like, hey, why don't I revisit the video, maybe try to repurpose some of the stuff and make something new out of it. And it's going to be for the UN. I'm like,
wow.
United Nations UN? I'm like, what?
The world.
I'm like, wow. Okay. And then like that imposter syndrome kicks in and I'm like, what? Like, this doesn't make sense. But then like in that video call today, I can't remember what movies that some of these people have worked on, but like major Hollywood films. And they've worked with obviously amazing talent and huge production kind of stuff. And I'm like, and he's talking to Josh in Dothan, Alabama. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
No, that's amazing, Josh. And you spoke about, well, we've spoken about Bane Tech, but in the sense of like, what was your like first, because I've seen you in conferences, like you've gone to like, different, technology. I watched your piece about the technology ring. And so it's like what was your first, like, I guess you would say that's a sponsorship, because like they send you phones and stuff like that.
Well, phones have kind of, I don't get as many phones as I used to, but there's other stuff that comes across now.
Yeah.
you're asking like what was the first like sponsorship?
Yeah. What was your
Sponsored
first? Yeah,
one?
what was your first sponsor?
If you consider trade-off kind of stuff, one of the very first ones, I mean, back at the even beginning of the channel, I was reaching out to case companies and stuff, and so Nomad, still work with them to this day, and I've met them at conferences and stuff, and so I've been able to make connections with them. So they've been with me since the start. I mean, the watch band is Nomad, and then the phone case is Nomad. So like I literally believe in their product, like I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think one of the first ones was Nomad.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so it's also just like a matter of networking, being purposeful, and like traveling, going places, and being intentional about bumping into people. That's so dope. One thing that I pulled from this, man, is just like again, like the willingness, and just having the audacity, having the tenacity, And before I ask Josh this last question, did you have something that you wanted to ask?
I'm just on the same build you're on, man. It's just like you saying, being intentional, going and doing your homework, man. If you want something, just go figure it out. If you got to Google it.
YouTube. Josh just said it. YouTube University.
And there's way more out there now than when I got started. I mean, I'm still learning stuff, and so it's like everything I'm going into, like how can I make? Not that I'm like unsatisfied, but I'm like, how can I make this next project better? What can I do to, increase the production quality in this way or that way, and learn how to do it. So, okay. But like, I mean, to add to that though, I will try to link up with other people that I consider better than myself, that are in environments that are doing way more than what I consider what I'm doing. Like for example, the times I've been pushed the most has been working with the Miss America production crew. Just one of those, again, like just happened to know someone that knew someone and got the call to, hey, we need some help. And I'm like, never done this kind of stuff, but let's go. And every time, like I learned something and I was able to take it and apply it to what I do now. And, just figuring out that kind of stuff. Anytime I get a call to second shoot with someone that I consider better than myself, I'm doing it. I'm doing my best to make that happen, because you come away with so much more value than what you might think.
That's cool. So before we get into closing, Josh, give us your 5-year prediction for Bane Tech and or Evergreen. What's your foresight for?
Bane Tech is one of those where I can go into more details or depth about it, but there needs to be some reviving of some of the audience engagement kind of stuff. Okay. But being able to just kind of continue to keep that as a way that I can make it a connecting point to other opportunities. That's ultimately like my goal at this point with that. With Evergreen, my goal 5 years is like, I want it to be where Dothan, I don't want any business in Dothan to ever hire outside of Dothan. So if I can help make that happen, whether it's through Evergreen, whether it's through the CD5, whether it's through anybody else in Dothan, there's plenty of talent for Dothan to take care of ourselves. Like there's no reason to hire outside of the Dothan area. We've got the talent, the capabilities to be able to cover photography, video production, broadcast at this point. I mean, Premier Entertainment Group, like slam a good company that can take care of all that kind of stuff, live, this or that. I mean, there's so much talent here. There's no reason for that. So that's probably my ultimate goal. I mean, like I said, it's, I'm working, with and for Evergreen stuff, but at the same time, it's like I can't stand it when I see a business or organization hire outside of Dothan. I'm like, okay,
we're right here.
Yeah.
Bro, Josh, that's spoken like a true builder, man. And so again, I know we said close like 3 times. But bro, as you know, gum is just all about taking a bite out of life, finding your pursuit, finding your life's meaning, adding your flavor to the world, because one of my favorite sayings is that, God didn't give anybody everything, but he gave everybody something. And so like it takes the willingness, you know, to go out there and really find your purpose, to really get out there and make it happen and make your mark into the world. And Josh, just a token of our appreciation, a small token. We just want to give you a piece of gum, a pack of gum. We got you some socks.
Gum is good, man. I appreciate that.
Just want to give you some words, bro, and just say that we appreciate you for coming in and building with us, Josh. And hopefully we get another opportunity to have you in with us and we sit down and just chop it up.
Keep it going.
Keep it going, bro. And we want to thank everybody for tapping in with us and building with us as you always do. Trey B, you want to give them some of those words of encouragement before we close it out?
I just appreciate everybody for tapping in with us. I appreciate Josh for being here with us. It's just a southern flow, man.
And it's just like that. Peace.